Hello, and welcome back to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Duville, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a man playing demon tag here with his neighborhood friends again today.
Tim Longo.
Don't you love playing demon tag?
Yeah.
Or as I was thinking, maybe it's German, and it's like, oh, demon tag. You know, I don't know. It could be either way.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Thank you.
Did you workshop that, or was that on the fly?
I did. I was thinking about that earlier today when I was playing.
Demon tag.
Yeah. Well, because it happens the second day. The second night is called demon tag. But I just was like, what if it's tag and demon is second in German? You know, it's not, but just would be funny. So anyway.
Well, the first chapter or first day is called The Strangling or something. Or strangling. Something. And everything has the strangling word in front of it, which is
all the save points are strangling.
Pretty rough.
Strangling it's like, that, yeah.
Strangling. What was one of them? That was strangling yard or something. Or
strangling courtyard, maybe.
Strangling courtyard is like,
yeah,
oh, man.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's rough. Yeah, it's rough. We are, of course, talking about Fatal Frame, or Fatal Frame, as I like to think of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm done. I'm sorry. That's the end. That's the end. I've had enough.
No, it's not going to be the end. It's not. It's going to about a half hour from now.
It could come back. It's true.
It's going to sneak in.
It needs to recharge for sure. So there's definitely a lot going on. We both have had a fair amount of retreading for different reasons, and it has led us to different things. For me, I did a retread because of some of the things we talked about last time, which were the fact that you can take pictures of basically benign ghosts, you'd say, ghosts that aren't going to directly attack you. And so like there's points there, that score that I was worried about that I was losing. So I did restart because I hadn't picked that up at all. And that made a big difference, actually. I ended up doing a little bit of different stuff with the upgrading, but I also sped through the first, couple of hours in probably half as much time because I had done all the stuff. I knew where the ghosts were, and I just was executing on the things I'd missed. The one thing I will say is I'm pretty sure last week that the note with the numbers on it was actually in my inventory the whole time, and I just hadn't looked at it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not surprised by that. Yeah. It's because
I just didn't think I had missed it. Like I was so surprised when you were like, "Oh yeah, there's a note," and I was like, "Huh?" I couldn't believe that but maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I didn't go back and look. So
yeah, I'm not. I mean, that's happened to me a few times where I just pick something up hastily and skim it or whatever, and then I get stuck and I'm like, okay, I have to go read these notes now and make sure that I got the clue I needed.
Yeah. I do like the notes generally. I mean, there's because they're in multiple voices and from different time periods, and it's pretty neat. I think it really rounds out the fiction pretty well, and it's a little bit better than the walking around looking at the environment that you find in other horror games. So your Resident Evils or whatever, you walk up to the painting and it's like, oh, it's a painting of such and such. Here's a dreary scene, whatever. And finding these notes and journals, not that there aren't those things in other horror games, but here, because of the way the story is constructed and then tying it back to that correlations page you mentioned, it's like this whole story is evolving as you pointed out, like all of these ghosts have a reason to be here. They're, they don't feel random, maybe we'll talk about that. It's kind of a separate topic, but it definitely has kind of led me to that. Anyway, I got that far, and then I've now passed you. So I was so worried. I was like, well, I got to try to fit in more time because he's so far ahead of me. I've got to catch up, and I don't think I was that far behind. But yeah, you lost your lead because why?
Well, I mean, we know it's well documented that my memory is terrible even the day after. And so coming back a week later, and I think I might have been near a ghost as well when I saved. And so when I started the session this week, I think I kind of went right into combat. And so that kind of probably everything flew out of my head at that point for sure. But yeah, I spent the whole session trying to figure out what I needed to do next. and ironically, you gave me a hint. I was standing very near where I needed to be,
Yep.
and I ran the other direction, you know,
Yep.
and basically scoured. And this relates to both of us in the previous sessions. I think in the first session, we talked about where I was stuck. And then you had, we talked about the note last session or last episode. And this episode, we're doing it again. So every episode, we've talked about the macro topic of, the direction and sort of usability to the player about what you should do next. Now, it is a semi-adventure game combined with the survival horror, et cetera, and it's not like a heavy combat game. So, I'm mixed on that, but it's really tough when if say you haven't played this game for a month,
Yeah, for start over.
there's no, yeah, you basically have to start over. It's really difficult to parse the notes for what the next step is. Like, I think the photos, they're on to something they're close to the answer, which I assume becomes the answer in future versions of the game, sequels. But with the list of the like the critical path photos you take,
Yeah.
Which are often related to the talismans, that photo list is close to what I need of like, and it turns out in this particular case where I was stuck, that was also the answer. And that's actually ironically before I had to stop, in this session, that's where I was headed next. But so that list does have a little bit of a history of your kind of main objectives. If you go, although now that I think about it, I do have one of a guy with the ropes around him that I don't think is critical path. So maybe it's not totally true, but it seems logical that you'd use a list of photos to show you what to do next,
Right. Yeah. It's kind of,
but anyway, yeah. So I know that, I know the mansion quite well.
You're basically at the end of the first night, because once you unlock that next step, I believe the encounter that ensues leads you to the.
Got it. Yeah, it feels like it. That shrine and Torii Gate and everything is very. Yeah, it seems like a crescendo sort of.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I do really like the. So the photos do kind of not always mean do the same thing, which is nice too. Like, that had been kind of my assumption. And then that got turned on its head. It's very funny playing it, playing through again. There were some things that I thought I had exhausted, but I hadn't. In particular, that room where there's the storage space, which is the first talisman you have to, find the picture to take. And there's like 3 ghosts in there that I didn't find last week. So it just was like suddenly a very dangerous room. There was one under the stairs. There were 2 upstairs. So it was rough. I mean, not too bad. I don't. Oh, I think actually I did.
You mean like hostile ghosts?
Yeah, hostile ones. Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder. Yeah. I guess I don't remember if I had fought that many there, but
yeah,
I did go back in that room, and there was. Although, yeah, we'll talk about it in another topic. But I'm a little confused about how the ghosts work from a meta perspective. But
yeah, I am too. Well, talking to you,
especially if you run away.
Think about it. Yeah. Well, if you run away, that's a whole nother thing as well. Yeah, I mean, the knowing what to do is a bit of a problem. I mean, it's like you said, it's an adventure game. It makes sense for a horror game, that you're a little baffled and bewildered, but it's still a game. And so some direction is warranted. I do definitely feel the, where do I go next? What should I be doing? I'm trying to follow ghosts when I see them, because they usually are leading me to something. But I often have questions of like, well, that was a door I couldn't open. Is that going to be something I can open later?
Yeah.
And things like that,
they don't have a good language for that.
Yeah, they haven't really figured that out yet. And it's starting to become clear from some of the notes that I've read, in particular from your brother, who is basically talking about why things change. And so that kind of explains some stuff. You'll see that soon. So I won't go into it, but it's kind of cool. And it, it makes the visual language less of a thing. So basically, if something's boarded up or whatever, it's boarded up. It's not going to unboard up, except under very specific circumstances, which I think will become clear. So,
Okay.
I want to be vague about it because it's kind of a cool thing to be like, oh, I get it. I see what's happening when you read that note. So,
interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, and if like, yeah, I don't know. I'm mixed on this too. And I guess I can, I don't know. It's a little bit like in the takeaways category for me of like one of the things that, as I've said many, many times that I enjoy about the podcast is we're playing older games that are going to have learnings and mistakes or things that we haven't figured out as an industry yet how to solve. And though there may be a solution today, they wouldn't have had it back then. But it's still, these games often remind me of things to make sure that I don't do.
Yeah.
Often we talk about lock and key order or whatever. And to that point, if you, like you were saying that I'm close to the end of this day, this sort of chapter / day, if that is the case, there are 2 doors with the family crest on them that look like kind of Resident Evil lock and key doors.
Yep.
So I assume I won't be dealing with those on the first day. Then
I think that is correct. I can't remember with one of them.
Well, yeah. So I mean, So maybe I'm getting something at the gate that is going to change that. But point being,
no, I think that's true. I think it is true that you don't.
Those are 2 really, Those are 2 really big blocks.
Yep.
In day 1 that I actually will not actually deal with at all.
Yeah, that's a tricky thing for sure.
Because I don't think you want to show the player those locks because if they do get lost,
yep,
they're gonna think
they're gonna keep coming back to it, and for sure, no, that's a good point. I do actually, you haven't got to them yet, so I do actually kind of like what those things end up being. They're basically a specific type of puzzle. I mean, they're not hard by any means. Maybe we'll talk more about the puzzles next time because you'll have had more of them.
I did the sliding one, that you would have done as well, right? That one was kind of neat, but I like those.
Right. So that sliding puzzle is what those other doors are as well.
Oh, okay.
And so if they're broken,
you need one piece.
If they're broken, they're not going to work, right? So that's the kind of like boarded up visual language is like, oh, it's broken. So it's never going to open until one of these shifts that I talk about happens.
Yeah. Okay.
But they don't communicate that at all, and definitely on that first day, you would definitely be forgiven for thinking, oh, this is a thing I haven't figured out, so let me figure it out. I'll keep coming back to it. I'll look at it more closely. What am I missing? Like, yeah, I could totally see that and agree. But then once you get it, once it happens, and you're like, oh. Like if you make the connection between, well, this one does work, those other ones didn't work. Okay, I just don't. There's something that's not. I'm not able to do those for some reason. I just leave it, But you might not. It might take you a long time to come to that.
Well, it's combined with what we talked about last time. It's combined with the pixel hunt problem too, right? Where they've been very diegetic about like that. They don't indicate a drawer that has something in it. You just have to check all the drawers. And so my anxiety is that now that I've done that one, the piece you get in the top of the lantern, that sliding puzzle, which is not a broken thing. It's just that there was a missing piece. So if it's, and I assume for those doors, there's a missing piece too, but there was a side of me that was like, oh, I've missed the pieces, or I've missed one of the pieces. I need to go find the piece to get into one of these doors, but the piece doesn't exist for me yet. So
I believe that's great. Yeah. It's definitely that is a little tricky. I totally agree.
Yeah, it's an order of operation challenge, and it's fine in this era to have it, but I don't think it's fair to do it these days anymore. You don't need to do it. Right?
No, you don't. No, I mean, the only reason I could see doing it would be, people who want that kind of like, oh, the game feels kind of jank because it's meant to be, because it's a PS1 recreation, which is a thing now, right, as well. So there's a certain amount of that's kind of still happening. And if any place it's kind of more acceptable for it to be there is to be knowingly played with in the horror genre, So, let's talk a little bit about the camera in combat and the jank of movement as the
Mm-hmm.
as the tension producer. We talked about it with Resident Evil that when when you've got the tank controls and it's kind of like it's hard to move around, it's definitely hard to run. And of course, by RE4 they decided, let's make it an action game with zombies where you do feel more powerful. And there's horror, but it's like big scary monsters and not like I can't move. So like,
Yeah.
so it's a different kind of horror. What happens here, I mean, you put it well at the beginning, is when you're in combat and the mechanisms switch on you for movement and camera aiming. You want to dive into that a little bit, because that's a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you play I think we're both playing default controls, and like you said, we talked about it with Resident Evil about how intentional the mechanics design and controls design are for the tension they're trying to build. Here, it feels also the same in that they're, a combat with a ghost, quote unquote, combat with a ghost is largely going to take place in one room or one space. You can run down the hall, you can go through doors even and stuff. So, you might run further than that, but it's not going to be very big spaces or very long. And so they're going to tune and design around that fact. They're slow moving, except when they try to dodge your camera and stuff. But, it's it's such a difference. You're spending most of your time running through in a third person camera through the house. And when you jump to the camera mode, you're playing a different game basically. And it's so discombobulating for me. And it ends, it adds to the tension, the befuddlement, clumsiness. I'm inevitably pressing something I didn't want to press. And there's a side of me that makes it feel like, oh, there's an intentionality there, because you should be scared, right? They want to make it hard, and they want to make you feel like you're, like in a horror movie when you drop the camera or you trip or whatever, right?
Yeah, you're fumbling for the keys. You're trying to get away, and you're trying to stop.
Yeah, and tension's higher. But for me, I just still think it doesn't work well, because it feels more like bad controls than anything. And I would have rather have them tune for better controls and have tension come from other places rather than my skill and memory, or not memory, but like, you have to remap your brain when you pull the camera out, because all the sticks change, and the different buttons, you need to use different buttons. And
have you discovered yet the square button when you're aiming the camera?
The square button when you're aiming the camera. You mean what's normally running in third person?
Correct. Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I use the triangle a lot.
Moves the camera faster.
It moves the camera faster.
Your camera aiming is faster when you.
Oh, I don't know if I want that.
Sometimes you do.
I overshoot a lot. Okay.
Yeah, but sometimes you're going to want it. Yeah, because especially enemies who like circle around, and come from different directions.
So it's a toggle? Like you turn it?
No, you hold it.
No, but I mean, sorry, not a toggle, but it's a binary is what I meant to say.
Yeah, it's binary.
So it's like you just go real fast when you have it held down.
Yeah.
Or not real fast. Yeah, so that's going to be terrible too. I can't wait.
This was not the days of analog buttons. The buttons are digital.
Yeah. Well, no, I meant yeah.
It's like a multiplier.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But you don't. I
So,
don't think you move faster. Not that that would be easy to do because now you've put your thumb on the button, and
oh
that's
yeah, sounds like a nightmare.
that.
Well, I mean, that point still stands. Is like that just adds another layer to my point of like, it is a terrifying thing to be chased by a ghost when you're trying to fumble for your camera.
Yeah.
But is it fun? No, I mean, I'm scared, and I'm leaving the camera mode and then running to get more distance, entering camera mode, hitting triangle, trying to find the ghost again. It's just like a 40 button process that, yeah, I mean, maybe someday it'll be interesting to see what they do with it in the more modern games, how they refine that. So, and it's they like you said, RE4 is the sort of RE4 from RE1 to RE4 is the perfect example of this whole debate, right? Of
Yeah.
like, where do you go? And actually, I'll extend it further, which we have already talked some about 7 and 8, but now we live in a world where a great franchise like Resident Evil has had such a long life where you can have RE1, RE4, and RE7.
Yeah, I know.
And they're all there and they're all still RE games, but they all have such different goals and they still succeed at their goals, So for the most part, and 7 can go back, in my opinion, 7, which I thought was scarier than 8, 7 can go back to that time of terror, right? Where you feel more vulnerable, first person as well as other reasons. So I don't know. It's like, it's nice to know that Fatal Frame had many tries at bat,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how much they've gone apart from this. I will try to see what version of with the PS3 it's a little tricky to access your like your PlayStation Plus library. And I know I have some version of this from that, but I don't know if it's like 4 or 5 or what it is. It just had a subtitle, so I don't know where it is in the series, but I think it's pretty late. Like I don't think there's been anything on the PS4 or PS5. Somebody let me know if that's not true. Or maybe it's like the last one that was in the PS3, and then there was one on the PS4, and I just don't know about it. But I'll try to dig that out so that I can at least reflect on that. Because I am curious too where they go in terms of the controllability. I mean, there is something to be said for like I'm trying to back away quickly and I accidentally point my camera at the floor. Like that's, I mean, it's a terrifying moment, and it's like, oh my God.
Yeah,
So there's
it
like
works.
there's a physical panic, that I feel. So I get the anxiety, right? And that works, right? And that's effective from a horror standpoint in just the way of like seeing somebody fumble their keys. When you watch somebody do it in a movie, you're like, oh, come on, this thing with the keys again. Really? And this like
Yeah.
brings it really, really home of like, oh yeah, it's hard to have good manual dexterity when you're afraid. So I don't hate it, but I get what you're saying, right? Obviously the
Well,
series have gone a different direction and they still have scares in them. So it's possible to be scary without having this, as a to lean on. I don't think they were leaning on it as a crutch. I think it's just a reflection of the time and like, what was available as far as control thinking went. A lot of that changed basically with Halo, on the consoles as far as like leaps forward in everything when Halo came out. Like, oh, controls could be actually really, really good. It's not the only game. So, but that's one
yeah,
where you're like,
yeah.
oh, wow, you really can crack all kinds of nuts in the control space, so.
Yeah, and I think the axes for me is really fear versus frustration.
Yeah.
Like I feel like or fear versus skill in that when I look at the ground, it's more it ends up being I'm afraid because I know the ghost is right behind me. But I get mad at myself because it was a mistake versus like when you drop your keys in a horror movie, because all those times I've dropped my keys in horror movies.
Yeah.
It's like you drop them because you're scared. You're trying too hard to do something. But for me, it's like I know what I want to do. I know what I need to do, and I just press the wrong button. It's like
Yeah.
it's kind of more of an intellectual frustration than an emotional one. But
Yeah, so we just react differently to that because I don't feel that way. Like I feel the same. Like, oh shoot, oh man, I'm doing the wrong stick. Like I have that moment of panic. Like, oh no, it's like I just dropped my keys. Like it totally works that way for me. I don't have the like
mm,
I knew what I was meant to do. Frustration, kind of. So that axis doesn't. I just don't feel it that way. I
yeah,
feel it like I was panicked, therefore I made a mistake. Right.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you're feeling it the other way around. I made a mistake. Now I'm panicking.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
And yeah,
I have a routine when I'm being chased, and I press the buttons I want to press, but occasionally I don't press the right one.
yeah,
And yeah,
yeah. That's interesting that we're just different in that way. Because I don't feel it that way. So maybe that's why I'm less frustrated by some of these older games with weird controls. They never bother me. I mean, the first time I played Resident Evil back when I played the GameCube version, I remember being like, "Are you kidding me? Like, this is how you do this?" And I gave Nathan Martz all kinds of crap about the only horrifying thing about this game is its save system and its controls.
yeah, but both intentional.
Yeah, both I think feel intentional. I mean, save you could say is an artifact of the times, but the controls felt like a choice.
You'd think that, but then you play Dead Rising, and you're like, no, that actually was
That was
intentional.
the next gener. That
That
was
was the same. No, but
that was.
yeah, fair enough. But I mean, my point is they could have done saves anywhere, but they chose not to, and because it was the next
Don't you
generation.
save? Didn't you say you save in the bathrooms? Oh, or maybe that's a fast travel.
No, that's my point. You can only save in the bathrooms.
Oh, okay. So
You
it's
can't
also a choice
save.
there, right? Okay,
You
can't
can't.
save
Yeah,
anywhere.
and
Yeah.
it's the
Okay.
same, and it's Inafune, right? So
Oh, really?
um,
Okay.
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But so uh, yeah. So, but the thing, I guess it's interesting. I guess it's natural that we're going to talk so much about RE1. I think though kind of like text on paper, the controls in Resident Evil are bad. Resident Evil 1,
Yeah.
but they're not. I guess I don't consider them bad because I feel like they tuned the game. There's some difference between Fatal Frame and Resident Evil for me because the tank
Well, here you've got
controls.
two separate control sets, and that's what's
Yeah,
really
that's probably the main problem. Yeah, because for Resident Evil, it's like, yeah, it's cumbersome to
and
turn
you're using
around
different sticks for the two
and
things, right?
run. Yeah, it's maybe more consistent. Yeah, so I know what they were trying to do, and I applaud them for trying to do it. They just aren't quite there yet.
I mean, they're
Um,
doing a first person thing and a third person thing in one game, and they didn't unify those controls well enough. Is
yeah,
really
and
what it
it's
comes
not,
down
and
to.
they're not even that far from uniform. Like they just could have swapped the sticks in the camera mode, and it would have been very close.
Yeah,
So it's like just funny that it's like one step removed. But in RE, in RE, I get frustrated in one sometimes when I'm trying to run away from a zombie. But the zombies are largely slower. You do want that tension. Once you kind of get the skill of it, that sort of slow pacing of it, I think, works well. Well enough. So
well,
yeah. Anyway,
let's turn to the positive of fighting ghosts. And you're bringing up zombies because zombies are famously restrained by walls, whereas ghosts not so much. And that has been just to switch kind of the flip side of some of the things that this gets to do differently with the camera and like where you can run away and all of that stuff. I mean, you're talking about like, I turn and run away, but sometimes that's a little tricky to do because ghosts have certain affordances that zombies don't.
yeah, I love that aspect of it. And I think it wasn't until I really had to do all the retreading of my steps that I
Yeah,
realized it, because I ended up, for whatever reason, which is another topic we may or may not get to tonight. Uh, I met a lot of ghosts that I thought I would have already met
right.
because I retraced my steps, but the concept of the, the simple rule change of them being able to go through walls and you not, changes the way level design needs to work and enemy design needs to work. Obviously, the enemy design is very simple, right? And they do have some variations, and some ghosts act a little differently, especially when you're pointing at them. But largely, they go
more boss feeling ones as well.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I've maybe only met one of those, um, but I know I just love the fact that I'm running away and I might run into a dead end, and they're just slowly going through the walls coming at me, and that is a great sort of like design switch on something versus its competitors, which are going to be anything from a zombie to a zombie dog to a dinosaur. It's like all the different kind of ones that were playing in the space at the time. And it's like, oh no, this is a ghost. The level, and then intentionally they have some spots where the hallways are a little more maze like. So you actually kind of have to like serpentine your way through a hallway. And of course the ghost just goes through all of the walls.
Yeah, behind that first talisman door, I think it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Or I'm trying to think where there's basically a set of stairs. It's like on your left when you come through the door. There's a mirror in the corner, and then you go around like a bend that then it turns out to be almost an S.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's so good, and it is so scary to be like, oh my god, I can't. Like it's coming down the stairs, but as soon as I start taking a picture of it, it can just come through the stair wall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to think. Yeah, you have to think differently about how to run away, right, and how to fight them. Basically, you have to think completely differently than you would in any other game. And like you mentioned, the outside, which I want to ask you about your points there, but the outside has enough obstacles in it for you where you might want to try to run through it, but they don't care about that stuff. The other one, the other room that I loved that doesn't even have walls is the sort of like sewer section or whatever, water section where there's just planks.
Yeah.
But you have to run across the planks, and they're literally in like a figure, in a figure 8 or something, or in an S. And so you're like, oh my God, I need to run. Oh, I got to, go at all these weird angles, and they're just kind of floating across the whole room,
Yeah.
So it's very clever, like flip of the script, on you. But yeah, you wanted to talk about the outdoors specifically.
Yeah, the outdoors I find super spooky. And that's, part of it is that. Part of it is like, oh, it's open, so they could come from any direction, and that would feel fair. So there's that. It's just like, and that there's that area where you're kind of at now where there's a sort of little maze with flagstones on the ground, and like these high walls, but they're not, they're not like an interior wall. They don't go on forever. So you can look up, and it's like, and you can see the trees on the other side. And, with the sort of limited power of the machine, you'd think that wouldn't work. But like Silent Hill 2, it just plays really, really well with the hardware. They're just like these narrow trees that are sticking out. They're almost gestures of trees. Like they're so, non-defined, but that actually just makes them that sort of starkness makes them like more ghostly and terrifying just as trees. So I'm just like, when I look up above that wall, I'm like, oh, here's a nicely built man-made object. And then it's like, oh, and here's the bones of the world, sticking up above it. It's just, it's like if you walk around outside at night when it's really dark in the woods or something. I grew up, in a pretty wooded area. Like it can be pretty creepy, just walking around, even by moonlight or whatever. And yeah, I'm sure you've spent way more time out on the trail than I have in recent years. You're out there, and it's like
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, to overshare and to be honest about that, because I am such a, as a backpacking nut. That is a fear that I actually had to get over many years, because you're sleeping out in the middle of the forest in the dark, and when I was younger, it was really hard to sleep, and now I don't even use a tent. Usually I'm just sleeping literally in the forest, like on the ground.
Yeah.
And it's fine, but it's a very spooky thing.
Right. I mean, it's atavistic, right? I mean, it throws back to like, that's the danger
Yeah.
space, right?
Right.
This
Exactly.
is
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
we started living in, caves and then started building buildings, is because out there's things that eat us.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And that forest you mentioned too, like the other funny thing about that is that because it's essentially like in the facade of it, and you can't go out there, there's this sense that it recedes
Yeah.
and it's dark, and you're like, it's like forbidden because you
Yeah.
can't actually just go explore. It's like, no, don't go over there. And then you probably got it, but there's a collectible ghost in that forest.
Yep.
And and I was like, how can there be one over there? I don't see any shimmer. Like the sound's happening, and you kind of like get it just at the right spot, and it's just out in the darkness. And then you take a picture, and then the ghost shows up, and it's like insane old man, or I forget which one it was,
Yeah.
but it was like terrifying. I was like, oh my god, he's looking right at me.
Yeah.
And he was there all along, kind of stuff.
Exactly. And then those are the things that further heighten those outdoor spaces. Like, I remember the first time I went out near where the water wheel is.
Yeah, the lanterns. Yeah.
Yeah, where the lanterns are. And I knew I had to take a picture of the water wheel because it was one of the talismans. And I'm like, I step out there was like a benign ghost, or like a non-threatening ghost. And I get a picture of that. And then I'm like, I don't want to turn my back to take a picture of the water wheel. I'm afraid of what's going to happen if I turn my back. Right. And also I didn't want to go over on the other side. Like, it felt so, it's funny because it was open. And so it was in theory less oppressive. It felt more oppressive just because it felt, even though indoors, they can come through walls, there's sort of this rule like, yeah, but they won't until they're there. But when you're outside, it's like, oh, they could just come from anywhere. Like, and it would be fair game, like that would be fair play. They're allowed to come from anywhere. It's wide open, So I don't know. There's something that really, really works for me there that just heightens my fear. And with the, the sort of, hardware fog or whatever is going on.
Mm-hmm.
It also plays really, really well into that. There's sort of banding that happens, because the palette's not amazing, and all of that the opposite. It's not like authentic to what it really looks like, but that inauthenticity makes it like, heightens the terror for me in a way that like certain types of films work on me the same way. It's like, well, because this is so over the top melodramatic, it's that much more like, like it kind of takes you out of, because it takes you out of reality. It's like, well, at that point, anything can happen. And that makes it scarier for me. So, I like that aspect.
I found a way to reference Dark Souls, by the way.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it had every episode got to find a way. But that with that, do you remember what that room / level is called, where the lanterns on the water wheel are?
I do not.
It's called the Abyss.
Oh dear.
Yeah, and so if you look at the map, there's a little more to it, and I think it might be blocked off right now.
It is blocked off right now, yeah.
But I think there's going to be more to it. And if it's called the Abyss, the reason Dark Souls references because, oh man, that game. Oh man, I just got chills because the Abyss. It's like that section in Dark Souls with where you go to the Abyss and fight the four whatevers, but to your point, it's like it's just black, right? And you're just blackness, and you're fighting in that void, and you go down. Oh, what a game!
Yep.
Sorry,
it's fine. It's okay.
I digress into Dark Souls.
You sure took us down into Dark Souls territory. You took us down into the Abyss, sir.
Into the Abyss.
Yeah. That's another section that will open up just a little bit for you when this change happens. So things are changing about the house as you play, and the space, the outdoors as well, right? So it's cool. I like it a lot. I have really appreciated that aspect now that I got to that point. It's like, oh, okay, I see how now there's a rule there I didn't understand, which, like we talked about, isn't really fair. But when it starts opening up, we're like, oh, okay, I get now I understand. Like,
What is the rule? You've teed it up so much now. I'm like, what could it be? Like, what
yeah.
is going to change?
Well,
That
I mean, I don't know. It's not there. There's just some clarity. Basically, it's going to be each day you're going to have different paths, right? So each night you're going to have different paths, and it explains why. So
okay, all right, yeah. No,
that's
I mean,
that's all.
I'm patient. I'll find out soon, but it's interesting to know. Like, they could
Yeah.
do a lot. I mean, I still, to your point about like the how well it's doing, which wasn't one of our topics, but I think I wanted to reiterate it. What you said, how well they're handling the collectible story content, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
a tape or a newspaper or a journal. Um, and I think for me, it has a lot to do with the economy of the cast because there's not a lot. There's so few characters, right? They can go deeper into each of the characters and have a variety of things. And we played BioShock. We've talked about some of the masterclass, best in class kind of like story collectibles out there that are not just cutscenes. But this one has way more layers than I thought, right? Because like you said, it also deals with different time frames, different perspectives. And because it's all based on this one house and this one sort of ritual set and all this kind of stuff, it gives you it gives you a good canvas to like, or I'll switch it to photography metaphors. It gives you a lot of lenses to see the
Right.
same events through each character. So
Yeah, I also like running into you start to recognize them a little bit as well. And Takamine,
yeah, right.
a few times, right? And that's just, it is cool that you're like, despite the fact that you're not actually interacting directly with any of these characters, you're still like, over time, like, oh, I see what he was trying to do and why he came here, and like, and just kind of like, and it's funny because it in a way, it's surprising to me that they didn't lean into this, because that's really what I think his name is Shibata, who's the director. Like, that's what he's doing, right? He's going to this space to explore these things because there's an idea for him for a game there, right? It's like there's a meta layer as well that I think is kind of fun and pleasant. So yeah, I have been really, really digging it. The last thing I want to touch on, because you may have had a little time with it, maybe this will be the last topic for tonight, is I've gotten to do more upgrades at this point. I chose different upgrades, and I have a bonus function now. I don't know where you are with that, because you have fought more random maybe ghosts. We're not sure if they're random or if they're something else. Have you been upgrading the camera? What's been your approach? What's your strategy with the camera as far as that goes? Because it's, I sort of changed directions based on the first, time I was playing, the first couple of hours, and the second time what I tried to do.
Yeah, I haven't done any of the bonus ones yet. I'm using my typical upgrade approach, the same one I'm using with Diablo 4 right now. It's sort of like I try to max things out before moving on to a new thing. Okay. So I'm largely, also the bonus upgrades that I assume you use the balls for.
No, they power the usage, but yeah.
Oh, you have to. They're an ammo.
They're ammo, yeah.
Okay, yeah. It's just they're so expensive for me still. So although if I had saved them, I would have gotten them by now. But I'm basically upgrading the basic functions of the camera, and I just go, basically one row at a time, max it out, go to the next one, max it out, go to the next one. So I probably won't do a bonus one until I finish maxing out the camera basic functions.
Okay, yeah. So I did it a little differently. I spent a lot on the cameras, like how quickly you get the mystic points or whatever. I put my first two upgrades into that, because what I was finding was with any ghosts that move quickly, like it's hard for me to power up on those because I just can't keep the camera on it well. The muscle ability is not there for me to kind of get to them and follow them quickly. So like I need it to power up fast instead. So when I do get over, it's kind of like click, 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 click. So I spent a lot in that first. And I also had worked out the sort of using the square to speed up the camera. So I actually was getting better at like, not so much tracking them, but when they would move kind of a good distance, I would be able to get to them faster. So that worked. Those two things work together pretty well. And then I bought a bonus function. I saved up 20,000 score to get the biggest bonus function, which is the paralyze. And I have to say, it's a little off-putting because it is an ammo. Like there's the spirit stones basically power the usage. You basically equip one of the bonus functions. So there are 5, and you equip them.
You can use that one while you have it equipped.
Correct. And it takes a spirit stone to use it. And I was describing that room with the stairs and the kind of S around it with the mirror in the corner, because that was where I had a ghost that killed me. And in that combat, I tried to paralyze it so that I could, because that one moves really erratically and quickly, and like was having a hard time focusing on it. And I tried to paralyze it, and I think I missed. I was like, and you can miss?
Right.
I was like, oh no, like the problem is I'm having a hard time hitting it. I want to paralyze it so I don't miss. So I was a little frustrated, and now it's made me skittish because it's like, well, I only have right now, like, I don't know, 10 of those stones, and
yeah.
So I'm a little worried about that. I have to say, I might put more into the camera next. In fact, that was my next plan. I think I did one upgrade to have like a higher, like the Mystic power go higher. I haven't been doing the range so much as like the other two. So like the speed at which you get then
like the power, yeah.
And then like the overall power of it have been where I've been focusing. Because the first time I did the range, and that didn't help me at all. Like I put a couple into the range, I was like, that was useless to me. So I've taken a different approach the second time playing through the first part of the game. But I'm a little worried about it, so we'll talk about it more.
I'll get more deeply, and I mean, I guess next episode we got to finish. So
I was curious about where that's going to be tricky. Good luck to us.
Time. Yeah. How many days are there, do you think?
I don't know, but you know what? I'm going to look now so we know.
When it says 10 hours time to beat, I assume do they mean the save game 10 hours?
Well, it says completionist, so I don't know what that means. So like some of these other ghosts you've been fighting might be always there. Like we don't actually know what the rules are there. I'm looking up number.
Well, I just mean is the time to beat if you know what you're doing or not, kind of thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, who knows with time to beat. All right, so number of nights, fatal frame. That's not helpful. There are a total of 4 nights. So I'm in the second night, and you're on the first night. So
yeah. In typical fashion, let's assume the last night is short. So
that's probably true. But
it's good to know. I mean, I'm almost to the second one, so
you're very close to the second one.
I got the rhythm now.
Really close to the second one.
Interesting about the spheres. I did look in the manual, but it's not ironically in there. So I looked it up. The only thing I've looked up so far. Figure out what I found out what the stone mirrors are for. If you haven't found out,
I have, and I think it is in the manual.
Oh, I guess I missed it.
You may have missed it, but I'm pretty sure it was in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they're the, if you get reduced to 0 hit points when you're fighting a ghost, they will replenish, fully replenish you. So it's an interesting choice. Not sure how I feel about it because I guess it's good because if there's one you're having a hard time with, if you were able to carry them around, and have like, 4 of them. Like you might use several on one that is just for whatever reason difficult for you, and that crutch would mean you wouldn't have enough stone mirrors to get through the game. So that might be kind of the sort of,
You mean why they're automatic and one at a time?
why they're one at a time is because you want to like, they're kind of saying, well, you don't want to over rely on these because there's a economy of them. And if you kind of use them all at once, in one go, because you were having a hard time with this one ghost, it's better to kind of only use one in any ghost battle. Right. And,
it's a little, it's not my favorite as far as hand holdiness, but I'd rather let the player decide, but yeah, I get it. And they clearly are placing them, like there's one by the Torii Gate. So they're clearly placing them at places where they may need they may have difficulty spikes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and those don't carry over between the days, so it's like, well, if you get to that point, I mean, or the nights, I guess, but
oh, interesting.
Like if you go back there on the second night, there's not one where I left one behind. I think I had left one that I had not used, and it wasn't there anymore. So there was something different in the same spot. So.
Yeah, I guess I'll probably end up trying to use them more liberally then, instead of saving them. I have yet to use one, so.
Well, it's an automatic thing. It's if you get.
No, I know, but I mean, I've
you've used
either reloaded
or whatever. Yeah.
Although, I guess in certain cases, I wonder why it didn't kick in. Maybe I guess
you may not have had one yet.
I guess I didn't have one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because I got into a position where I'm like, oh man, I know where the other one is. I found another one. I gotta now I don't have one. Now I feel naked. So you do feel a little like, I don't have it anymore. So there's some stuff I like about it, because I do think it increases the tension, because they're there, they know, they expect you to use them. So if you don't have one right now, you kind of want to go back, but then there's the risk reward of like, well, what if I run into other ghosts on the way? And like it all kind of plays in well together and kind of increases that tension, which I like. So it's all about being scared.
Mm-hmm. So, it is scary. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's working very well on me. So I've been deeply appreciative. And I look forward to maybe playing Crimson Butterfly afterwards, which I understand is even scarier. So I mean, good for them.
Yeah. Wow.
I had always heard that about that one. That was a pretty scary game, and I just, for whatever reason, was like, really? Somebody with a camera? I don't know. I just didn't trust. All right, let's quickly we have one review, one email. This review came through the podcast, yada, 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 through Apple. I get those, but if you're using some other service, thank you for doing so. We don't probably see it, so if you'd let us know, that'd be awesome. But why don't you go ahead and read that review, sir?
Yes, review. Fantastic insights into classic games from Farragen?
No idea.
Yeah.
Not a real word.
So I'm going to say Farragen. Could be yeah. Anyway, I've been following the show for years and can't recommend it more highly. The show covers a variety of classic games over many genres, and playing along with the show is incredibly rewarding when the hosts dig into what works for the game and why. Even if you aren't playing along, you will be hooked by Brett and Tim's analysis and banter, backed by decades of real game developer industry experience. Thank you, Farragen.
Yeah, very kind. I, one thing I will say, somebody who's been listening for years and is now giving us a review, we love it. For the rest of you who are out there in the same position, feel free. It does, we don't do any kind of advertising whatsoever for this podcast. So word of mouth is the only way we spread. I guess reviews are a way in the infrastructures to have that happen. So we'd love it if you do it. All right, I do have one email. It is The Game That Gave Me Nightmares from Duggar Danielson. Hello, Tim and Brett. I am excited that you are playing Fatal Frame, or Project Zero as I knew it back in the day. It is my all-time favorite series of horror games, though mostly because of Fatal Frame 2. That game is the only game to have ever given me actual nightmares. I was 17 at the time. So needless to say, I have a fondness for the series. A key thing that I've always found inspirational about the series is its combat system. Having to follow and watch the ghost until it's just about to land an attack on you. A clever way to build tension into game mechanics, in my opinion. Got to end this with a thanks for a fun and entertaining podcast that continues to be a joy to listen to, and best wishes for the rest of your Fatal Frame playthrough, because if I recall correctly, the difficulty curve of the game gets not too dissimilar to Wall when you get to the last chapter. So good luck with that, I guess. And he says, best to Kvedger? I don't know. Dogger Danielson. So, yeah, I mean, the we were talking a little bit about the camera and the different shots. I don't know now if that was pre-show or not, and if not, we'll get to it next time. But yeah, the sort of like you have to kind of hold the camera on them, and as they get closer, you get more points and all that.
Yeah, the pressure luck on just having them get closer to you. Yeah, which is like not the case for zombies, right? So it's
right.
really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it works pretty well. Yeah, with zombies, it's like shot placement more than anything else. Here, they kind of have both because you are trying to like shoot them, quote unquote, with the camera in the head area. There's kind of this circle that's usually around the head of the ghost, but yeah, the sort of following it, watching it, and kind of it dashing, or like disappearing and reappearing. And those moments are like, there are times where I'm just like, oh no, this is one that moves really quickly, and I'm like clicking away, like, and I'm watching my camera, the number of shots I have left on the film, and going like, I don't know if this is good. Like, I don't know, like that does feel like a very limited resource, and I'm very worried about it. So
me too.
Yeah, it's a thing I worry about. And when I played through again, I was like, oh, okay, on the one hand, I'm taking more pictures of these ghosts that are kind of benign, or whatever. They're just kind of the collectibles, as you pointed out. But on the other hand, I guess I didn't take any pictures that were like completely unnecessary. Because when I first picked up the camera, in the game, I was like taking pictures of things all over the place. I was like, oh, cool, just like, and not thinking, oh, this is my ammo until I got to like, tutorial for combat.
Yeah. There's a good tension there to talk about maybe down the road to see next episode how they balance that, if there's any dynamic balancing, because if you get to the end and
we just have nothing left,
and you have nothing left, like how are they going to balance that? But it's an interesting natural tension, because with a camera you want to be taking lots of pictures,
right?
Because it's a camera, like that's the whole point. So it's weird to make that ammunition, it's like bullets. You don't do anything else with a bullet,
right?
You don't enjoy a bullet by looking at a bullet. It's like
I don't. I'm not gonna yuck anybody's yum, but
well, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, but so anyway, I mean, it's definitely a thing. I think I have the most I have right now is the Type 37, which is kind of the middle range one that I've got. I don't know, maybe around 30 shots. I only have one of the 74. I think it is the highest end, maybe 72, 71, something like that. I don't know. It's a 70 something. And then of the 14, I've only got like a dozen. Like, so I already feel like I don't have a lot of
that sounds rough.
And I'm like, I'm pretty worried. And it's like, I think those are things that highlight like that there's an indicator in the, like that you can see that you can pick it up. So like you can't miss it. But I also feel like I found it in drawers. So I'm like, have I missed some? Like, should I be going back? Will there be more ghosts? I guess we'll find out next time.
Is that stuff persistent to the next day, or does it reset?
It doesn't feel like things like that persist to the next day.
I mean, your inventory. Does your inventory the same?
Oh, your inventory persists. Yeah. Your inventory does. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you keep everything you have. So, yeah, because I've only used, I mean, the spirit stones you'd be picking up and you might not have any use for. Like you have no use for the spirit stones yet. So, but things that are placed in the world feels like they don't. So you're basically like loading into a new level.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Even though most of it is the geometry is the same, it's like a new set of placement of everything. So
yeah,
anyway.
yeah, it's from a development standpoint, it's a new level.
Right, exactly. All right, well, thanks for that. Both reviews and email this time. That, of course, was sent to devgameclub@gmail.com. You can find us on the web at devgameclub.com, and you can also, on occasion, find my co-host twitching at twitch.tv/
Tim Longo Jr. with the JR at the end.
Yeah, you're well into the world of Ruin, I understand.
Yeah, I finally have my complete party. I didn't get to play last week, but I have my complete party of sidekick auto battlers. And I think because I just got Gao finally.
At last.
And I have the Umaro. And yeah, I think the next session is going to be dragon hunting.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and looking for a mime.
Oh, yeah. You can do it. I believe in you. I found the mime, I think. Anyway, we also have a Discord. There's a link in the show notes. Our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton, commissioned by friend of the cast, Aaron Evers, and our logo, the Discord, our merch store, all by Mark Garcia. Have fun enjoying the Ritual of 5 Ropes this week, and good night.
Demon Tog!
Wow.